I came home to silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that feels like something has been taken from you. My piano was gone. The same piano my late husband Robert gave me 40 years ago. The one that held every memory of my life. Every lesson, every song, every piece of myself. Daniel, I asked, my voice barely steady, where is it? He didn't even look ashamed. Melissa sold it, Mom. We needed the money. Needed it for what? Melissa just smiled and said, for our future. That was the moment I realized they didn't just sell my piano. They thought they could replace me. If this story hits something in your heart, don't just sit with it alone. Like this video, subscribe if you believe family should mean something, and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what would you have done in my place? I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the same empty corner of my living room, where my piano had stood for 4 decades, staring at the faint outline it left behind on the hardwood floor. You don't realize how much space something fills until it's gone. That piano wasn't just furniture. It was Robert. I closed my eyes, and suddenly I was back in 1983. A small house, barely enough money to cover rent, and Robert walking in with that same stubborn smile. I know it's not practical, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. But I saw it, Judy, and I thought of you. I remember laughing, then crying, then laughing again. We couldn't afford it. Not really. But he bought it anyway. Because you deserve something that's yours, he told me. And he was right. That piano became my world. I built my life around it. After Robert passed, it became the only thing that still sounded like him. Every note carried something he left behind. And Daniel, my son, he grew up listening to it every single day. I used to teach students in that very room. Little hands fumbling through their first scales. Teenagers rolling their eyes, but secretly proud when they got it right. Parents sitting quietly in the corner, watching their children discover something real. Daniel used to sit on the stairs pretending not to listen. But I knew he did. Mom, he once said when he was about 12, why do people cry when you play? I smiled at him. Because music says things people can't. He nodded like he understood. Back then, I thought he did. But somewhere along the way, something changed. After college, Daniel drifted further away from home. He stopped coming by as often. When he did, he always seemed distracted, always checking his phone, always in a hurry. Then Melissa came into his life. At first, I tried to like her. She was polished, confident, always dressed like she had somewhere better to be. The kind of woman who speaks with certainty, even of woman who speaks with certainty, even when she doesn't know what she's talking about. Mrs. Perry, she said the first time she stepped into my home, scanning the room like she was evaluating it, this place has potential, when she doesn't know what she's talking about. Mrs. Perry, she said the first time she stepped into my home, scanning the room like she was evaluating it, this place has potential. Potential. I remember glancing at the piano, then back at her. This place already has history, I replied. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Over time, I noticed little things. Melissa never sat near the piano, never asked about it, never commented on my students or the music. But she did comment on space. You could open this room up, she said, once tapping her nails against the top of the piano. Make it more modern, less cluttered. Cluttered? I didn't say anything. I just placed my hand over the wood as if protecting it. Daniel laughed it off at the time. Mom's not getting rid of that thing, he said. That thing. It stung more than I let him see. Still, I told myself it was just words. People say careless things. It doesn't mean they don't care. I wanted to believe that. But then the comments became more frequent. Have you ever thought about downsizing? Melissa asked casually one afternoon. I like my home the way it is, I said. She smiled again, that same tight smile. I just think you deserve something easier. Less responsibility. Less responsibility. It sounded kind on the surface, thoughtful even. But something about it felt off, like she wasn't talking about my comfort. She was talking about control. Daniel started agreeing with her more often. "Maybe she's right, Mom," he said once. "This place is a lot for one person." I looked at him carefully. "Since when do you think that?" He shrugged. "I'm just saying things change." "Yes, they do. But I never imagined they would change like this." Back in the present, I sat in that empty room, replaying every moment I had ignored. Every small warning sign I had brushed aside. The way Melissa looked at my home. The way she talked about my life like it was something outdated. The way Daniel slowly started seeing things through her eyes instead of his own. And now the piano was gone. Not donated, not stored, sold. Like it meant nothing. I stood up slowly, my knees aching more than usual, and walked to the window. The street outside looked exactly the same. Quiet, ordinary. But inside my house, everything had shifted. I wasn't just grieving an object. I was grieving a version of my son that no longer existed. And for the first time, a thought crossed my mind that I didn't want to admit. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't just about money. Melissa had been planning something. And Daniel, he let her. I turned back towards the empty space one more time. Then I whispered almost to myself, "You should have asked me." But deep down, I knew they didn't think they had to. The next morning, I didn't wait. I called Daniel. "Come over," I said. No warmth, no softness, just a statement. There was a pause on the other end. "Mom, I'm kind of busy." "Now, Daniel." Another pause, then a quiet sigh. "All right, we'll be there." We. Of course. An hour later, I heard the front door open. I stayed in the living room, standing exactly where my piano used to be. I wanted them to feel it. The emptiness. Melissa walked in, first heels, clicking like she owned the place. Daniel followed, hands in his pockets, eyes already avoiding mine. Judith, Melissa said, smiling like this was a casual visit. "You wanted to talk." I didn't answer her. I looked at my son. "You let her sell it?" Daniel shifted his weight. "Mom, it wasn't like that." "Then tell me how it was." His jaw tightened. "We needed the money." For what? Melissa stepped in smoothly like she had been waiting for this moment. "For something important," she said. "Something that actually builds a future." I turned to her slowly. "My piano built my entire life," I said. "Don't talk to me about important." Her smile faded, just a little. "We're not trying to disrespect you," she replied. "But you have to understand that piano was just sitting there. It wasn't being used to its full potential." I almost laughed. "Not being used," I repeated. "I've been teaching in this house for 40 years. Daniel rubbed his forehead. "Mom, you barely have students anymore." That one hit deeper than the rest, because there was some truth in it. "I still play every day," I said quietly. "That's not the same," Melissa cut in. "We're talking about growth, opportunity, scaling something bigger." There it was again. That tone, like everything in my life was small, and everything in hers was big. "What did you use the money for?" I asked, my voice steady now. Daniel hesitated. Melissa didn't. "We're opening a music school." The room went silent. "A music school?" I looked at her, then at him. "You sold my piano," I said slowly, "to start a music school." "Yes," she said confidently. "A real one, not just lessons in a living room. We're talking about a proper business. Multiple instructors, structured programs, branding, expansion. Every word felt like a slap. "And you think you can do that?" I asked. "I know I can," she said. "Based on what?" She crossed her arms. "I have a vision." "A vision," I repeated. "Do you have training, experience, certification?" She didn't flinch. "I have business instincts. That matters more." I turned to Daniel again. "And you believe this?" He looked uncomfortable now. "I believe in her," he said. "Not the plan, not the idea, her." That told me everything I needed to know. "Daniel," I said softly, "do you even know how much that piano was worth?" He shrugged. "Couple thousand?" I closed my eyes for a second. "It wasn't about the money." "Everything is about money, Mom," Melissa said. "Melissa." "No," I replied, opening my eyes again. "Everything is about value, and you don't understand the difference." She let out a short laugh. "With all due respect, Judith's sentiment doesn't pay bills, and ignorance builds debt," I shot back. That wiped the smile off her face. Daniel stepped forward, trying to calm things down. "Okay, let's not do this," he said. "We're already in it. The lease is signed, equipment is ordered. We've put everything into this. Everything." "What does everything mean?" I asked. He hesitated again. Melissa answered. "We used the piano money plus our savings." My stomach tightened. "All of it?" "Yes," she said. I looked at Daniel. "And you agreed to this?" He nodded, but his confidence was weaker now. "We had to take a risk, Mom." "A risk," I repeated. "Or a gamble." "It's the same thing," Melissa snapped. "No," I said firmly. "A risk is calculated. A gamble is blind." Silence filled the room again. I could see it now. Not just the piano. Not just the disrespect. This was bigger. They hadn't just made a bad decision. They had built their entire future on something fragile, something rushed. I could see it now. Not just the piano. Not just the disrespect. This was bigger. They hadn't just made a bad decision. They had built their entire future on something fragile, something rushed, something they didn't fully understand. "And what happens if it fails?" I asked quietly. "It won't," Melissa said immediately. "That's not what I asked." She didn't answer this time. Daniel did. "Well, figure it out." I stared at him, stared. "That's your plan?" I asked. "You'll figure it out after losing everything." He looked away. And that's when I realized something that made my chest tighten in a completely different way. He wasn't confident. He was scared. But he had already committed too much to turn back. Melissa, on the other hand, she still believed in it. Or at least she refused to admit she didn't. I took a slow breath. "Where is it?" I asked. "Where is what Daniel said?" "My piano." They exchanged a quick glance. "It's already sold," Melissa said. "Private buyer." "Who? I don't think that matters. It matters to me." She hesitated just for a second. Then she said, "It's gone, Judith. You need to let it go." Let it go. I looked at the empty space again, then back at them. "No," I said quietly. "I don't think I do." They didn't understand that yet. But they would, because in that moment, something inside me shifted. The hurt was still there. The betrayal was still there. But underneath it, something colder began to take shape. Clarity. If they wanted to play business, then they were about to learn who they were really dealing with. After they left, the house felt even quieter than before. But this time, It wasn't just grief sitting in the silence. It was resolve. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I thought I would break down, maybe even call someone, maybe sit on the floor and hold on to the emptiness like it could somehow give me answers. But instead, I made tea. Slowly, carefully. The same way I had for years. Because when everything feels out of control, you hold on to what you still can. And as I stood there, watching the steam rise, one question kept repeating in my mind. Who bought my piano? Melissa said it didn't matter. That meant it mattered very much. I walked to the small desk in the hallway and opened the drawer where I kept old receipts, student records, and business cards. I had learned long ago never throw away information. You never know when you might need it. After a few minutes of searching, I found what I was looking for. A business card. Franklin and Company Fine Instruments. I picked it up, running my fingers over the faded lettering. I hadn't used them in years, but they were one of the few reputable dealers in the area who handled higher-end pianos. If someone bought mine quickly, there was a good chance it passed through them. I grabbed my phone and dialed. It rang twice. Franklin and Company, this is Thomas speaking. His voice sounded older than I remembered. Thomas, this is Judith Perry, I said. I'm not sure if you remember me. There was a pause, then a soft chuckle. The Perry residence on Maplewood Drive, he said. You had that beautiful 1968 Steinway upright. My throat tightened. Yes, I said quietly. That one. I remember it very well, he said. One of the finest tones I've ever heard in a home instrument. I closed my eyes for a second. Thomas. I continued steadying my voice. That piano was sold recently, without my consent. I need to know where it went. Silence. Then carefully he said, I'm afraid I can't disclose client information. Of course, professional discretion. I understand, I said, but I also know you value history. That piano isn't just an item, it's been part of my life for 40 years. It was sold without my knowledge. I'm asking you as someone who understands what these instruments mean, help me. There was a longer pause this time. I could almost hear him thinking. Finally, he sighed. I can't give you a name, he said, but I can tell you this. It wasn't purchased by a private collector. My grip tightened on the phone. Then who? It was acquired through a business transaction, he continued. A new institution. They're preparing to open soon. My heart skipped. A music school? I asked. Another pause. Yes. I didn't say anything for a moment. I just stood there letting the realization settle in. They didn't just sell my piano. They used it as part of their plan. Thank you, Thomas, I said softly. Judith, he added gently, if it helps, the instrument is in excellent condition. It hasn't been altered. Used it as part of their plan. Thank you, Thomas, I said softly. Judith, he added gently, if it helps, the instrument is in excellent condition. It hasn't been altered. That meant something. Thank you, I repeated and hung up. I stood there for a long time after that. Then I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was clear. Melissa hadn't just taken my piano. She had turned it into the centerpiece of her dream, her school, her vision, my life repackaged into her future. And suddenly, everything made sense. The urgency, the confidence, the way she spoke like it was already happening, because it was. They didn't need to imagine it anymore. They had already built it on top of what they took from me. I walked back into the living room and stood in the empty space again. But this time, I wasn't looking at what was missing. I was seeing something else. Opportunity. If my piano was now part of their school, then I knew exactly where it was. And more importantly, I knew where they were vulnerable. I went back to my desk and opened my laptop. It had been a while since I had looked at anything beyond email and student scheduling, but some skills don't fade. Especially when you've spent decades running your own business, even if it was just from a living room. I searched for new music schools in the area. It didn't take long. There it was. Crescendo Academy. I stared at the name. Of course. Dramatic, ambitious, trying to sound bigger than it was. I clicked the website. Polished design, professional photos, promises of structured programs, performance opportunities, elite-level training, and right there on the homepage, a picture. My piano, front and center, positioned like a crown jewel. My breath caught. They didn't even try to hide it. They turned it into a selling point. I leaned closer to the screen, reading every word. Featuring premium instruments to inspire excellence. Premium. That's what my life had been reduced to, a marketing feature. I clicked through the pages, pricing, programs, instructor listings. There were only two names, Melissa Carter, founder and director. No formal credentials listed, and Daniel Perry, operations manager. No teaching background. I sat back slowly. This wasn't just risky. It was reckless. No experienced instructors. No established reputation. And yet they had already signed a lease, purchased equipment, and launched a full branding campaign. They were all in, which meant they had no room to fail. And that was where things got interesting. I reached for my notebook and began writing. Not emotions, not memories. Facts, costs, timelines, weaknesses. Because if Melissa wanted to play business, then she had just made one critical mistake. She underestimated me. I had spent 40 years building something from nothing. Not flashy, not loud, but real, sustainable, respected. And she thought she could walk in, take the foundation, and scale it overnight. No, that's not how this works. I looked at the screen one more time. At my piano, at her name, at my son standing beside her in that staged photo, smiling like everything was perfect. And for the first time since all of this started, I smiled too. But not the way Melissa does. Mine was quieter, sharper, because I wasn't reacting anymore. I was planning. I didn't rush. That's the difference between reacting and winning. For the next 2 days, I did nothing visible. No calls, no confrontations, no emotional messages to Daniel. Instead, I watched. I studied Crescendo Academy like it was a case file. Their website, their pricing, their messaging, their positioning, and more importantly, their mistakes. Because there were many. First, the pricing. Too high for beginners. Too vague for advanced students. They were trying to position themselves as elite without having the credibility to support it. That creates a gap. And gaps are where things break. Second, the instructors. Only two names. Melissa, who had no teaching credentials. Daniel, who had no teaching experience. No certifications listed, no performance background, no affiliations. To the average parent, that might not stand out immediately. But to someone who knows the industry, it screams risk. Third, and most important, no community, no testimonials, no student base. They were launching something that looked impressive but had no roots. And I knew exactly how dangerous that was, because I had built my entire life on the opposite. Slow growth, trust, relationships. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair. They built a stage, I whispered to myself, but they forgot the audience. And that's when the idea came to me. Not revenge, no, something better. Leverage. I reached for my phone and scrolled through my contacts. Names I hadn't called in years. Former students, parents, colleagues, people who had trusted me with something personal. Their children, their time, their growth. I hesitated for a moment. Not because I doubted the plan, but because I knew once I started this, there was no going back. Then I pressed call. "Hello," a woman's voice answered. "Emily," I said. "It's Judith Perry." A beat of silence. Then, "Oh my goodness, Mrs. Perry." I smiled slightly. "Yes, it's been a while. We spoke for a few minutes. Small talk at first, catching up." Then I asked the question that mattered. "Is your daughter still playing?" "She stopped a few years ago," Emily said. After things slowed down." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "What if I told you I'm starting something new?" I asked. A pause. "What kind of new?" she said. "Something smaller," I replied, "but more personal, more focused, the way it used to be." Another pause. "I'd be interested," she said carefully, "but I thought you weren't teaching anymore." "I never stopped," I said quietly, and that was true. I just hadn't been seen. We ended the call with the promise to reconnect. Then I made another, and another. By the fifth call, something interesting started happening. People remembered, not just my name, my work, my consistency, my results. "Your students always stayed longer than anyone else's," one parent told me. "You taught my son confidence, not just music," another said. "That recital you did back in 2005, we still talk about it," someone else added. I wrote everything down, not because I needed validation, but because I was building something, piece by piece, connection by connection. By the end of the day, I had a list. 15 families who were open to coming back, 5 former students who are now adults and still playing, 2 who were even teaching themselves. That was more than enough. I didn't need hundreds. I just needed a foundation. The next morning, I made another call. This one was different. "Riverside Properties." A man answered. "Hi," I said. "I'm calling about a commercial space lease." His tone shifted immediately. "Of course, ma'am. What kind of space are you looking for?" "Something modest," I said. "Quiet, accessible, suitable for a small music program." He asked a few questions. Location, budget, timeline. I answered calmly, carefully, and then he said something that made me pause. "Well, we do have one space that might interest you," he said. "It just became available yesterday. It's about 10 minutes from downtown near Maplewood." My chest tightened slightly. "Maplewood? That's close to me?" I said. "Yes," he replied. And interestingly enough, it was originally being considered by another music business, but they went with a larger location. I didn't need him to say the name. I already knew. Crescendo. Of course they chose bigger, flashier, more expensive, because that's how Melissa thinks. Bigger means better. But bigger also means heavier, harder to sustain. "What's the rent?" I asked. He told me. It was reasonable, more than I had paid working from home, but far less than what a full-scale academy would require. "Can I see it?" I asked. "Absolutely," he said. "I can schedule you for this afternoon," I agreed. When I hung up, I sat still for a moment. This was moving faster than I expected, but that wasn't a problem. It was an advantage. Because while Melissa was building something big, I was building something right. I stood up and walked to the empty corner one more time. The absence of the piano didn't hurt the same way anymore. Now it felt like a starting point. "You wanted a future," I murmured softly. "Let's see whose actually works." And for the first time since all of this began, I felt something close to excitement. Not because I wanted to hurt them, but because I finally understood something they didn't. This was never about the piano. It was about what it represented, and they had no idea how much power they had just handed back to me. The space was smaller than I expected, and that's exactly why I liked it. "This is it," the agent said, unlocking the glass door and stepping aside. I walked in slowly. The room smelled faintly of fresh paint and dust. Sunlight filtered through the front windows, landing softly on the wooden floor. Not polished, not flashy, but honest. I took a few steps forward, letting my heels echo gently in the quiet. "This used to be a bookstore," he added. "Closed down about 6 months ago." I nodded already, picturing it differently. Not shelves, not books. Music, students, structure, purpose. I moved toward the back of the room, mentally dividing the space. Reception area near the front. 2 small teaching rooms along the side. 1 open area for group sessions. Not large, but enough. More than enough. "What do you think?" he asked. I turned to him. "I'll take it." He blinked. "Just like that?" "Yes. Would you like to review the lease details first?" "I will," I said calmly. "But I'm not here to hesitate. Because hesitation is where people like Melissa win. They move fast, push hard, overwhelm. But this time, I was moving with intention. Not speed." We sat down at a small folding table, and he went over the terms. 12-month lease, reasonable deposit, flexible start date, no hidden clauses. It was clean, simple, sustainable. Everything Crescendo wasn't. "I can have the paperwork ready by tomorrow," he said. "I'll sign today," I replied. That surprised him again. But I didn't explain, because he didn't need to understand. This wasn't just a business decision. It was a correction. By the time I walked out of that space keys in my hand, something inside me felt grounded. Not angry, not hurt, focused. I drove home in silence, but my mind was already moving ahead. Name, structure, positioning. I didn't need something grand. I needed something true. When I got home, I sat down at my desk and opened a blank page. For a long moment, I just stared at it. Then I typed Perry Music Street Udio. Simple, no drama, no performance, just my name, my work, my reputation. Because unlike Melissa, I didn't need to invent credibility. I already had it. The next step was harder. Not strategy, not logistics. People. I picked up my phone again and called Daniel. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Hey, Mom." His voice was cautious. "Good. Are you free tomorrow?" I asked. A pause. "Why, I want to show you something." Another pause. Then, "Is this about the piano?" "No," I said calmly. "This is about the future." "Are you free tomorrow?" I asked. A pause. "Why, I want to show you something." Another pause. Then, "Is this about the piano?" "No," I said calmly. "This is about the future." Silence stretched between us. Then he said, "All right. What time? 10 in the morning." "It'll be there." I hung up without saying goodbye. Not out of anger, but because I didn't want to soften what needed to be firm. The next morning, I arrived early. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and stood in the middle of the room again. Empty, quiet, waiting. I placed a single chair near the center. Not for comfort, for conversation. At exactly 10 o'clock, the door opened. Daniel walked in, looking around with a confused expression. "What is this?" he asked. "My space," I replied. He frowned. "You rented this?" "Yes." "For what?" I met his eyes. "To teach." He let out a small, almost disbelieving laugh. "Mom, you already have a place. Your house." Had I corrected? He shifted uncomfortably. "That's not what I meant." "I know what you meant." He walked further inside, glancing around. "It's small." "I know. No signage, no setup, no equipment." "I know." "So, what's the plan?" he asked, crossing his arms. I stepped closer to him. "The plan," I said quietly, "is to build something real." He shook his head. "Mom, this isn't how it works anymore. You can't just open a place and expect people to show up." I smiled slightly. "I'm not expecting," I said. "I'm inviting." He didn't understand. I could see it in his face. "You're competing with us?" he asked suddenly. There it was. Not concern, not curiosity, competition. "I'm not competing with you, Daniel," I said calmly. "I'm correcting something. That sounds like the same thing." "No," I replied. "Competing is about beating someone else. This is about rebuilding what was mine." His expression hardened. "You think we stole from you?" "You did." "No," I replied. "Competing is about beating someone else. This is about rebuilding what was mine." His expression hardened. "You was mine." His expression hardened. You think we stole from you?" "You did." "That's not fair." "Fair," I repeated. "You sold something that didn't belong to you." He ran a hand through his hair. "We needed that money. And now you think we stole from you?" "You did." "That's not fair." "Fair," I repeated. "You sold something that didn't belong to you." He ran a hand through his hair. "We needed that money. And now," I asked, "what do you have?" He hesitated. "A business." "A risk," I corrected. He exhaled sharply. "You don't believe in us." "I believe in you," I said, softly. That made him pause. "But I don't believe in what you're building," I added. Silence. Then he said, "Melissa does. I know. And that should matter." "It does," I said. "But belief without foundation is just noise." He looked away. I stepped back, giving him space. "Walk with me," I said. We moved slowly through the room. I pointed to different areas. Here, individual lessons. Quiet, focused. He nodded reluctantly. "Back there, group sessions. Small, controlled." Another nod. "And here," I said, gesturing to the front community space. "Parents, conversations, trust." He looked at me again. "This isn't scalable," he said. I smiled. "It's sustainable." He didn't respond. Because that word hit something deeper. "Daniel," I said gently, "how many students do you have signed up?" He hesitated. "Pre-registrations don't count." His silence was the answer. "3, I guessed." "5, he said quickly. I nodded. "And how many do you need to break even?" He didn't answer. Because he knew, and I knew he knew. "That building you chose," I continued, "that lease, that equipment, that marketing." I stepped closer. "You're not building a school?" I said quietly. You're building pressure. His jaw tightened. You don't understand, he said. No, I replied. You don't. We stood there in silence, not as mother and son, but as two people standing on opposite sides of a decision. And for the first time, he looked uncertain, not defensive, not stubborn, just unsure. Why are you showing me this? He asked finally. I took a slow breath. Because I want you to see what stability looks like, I said. And he pressed. And I want you to decide before it's too late. Daniel didn't answer me that day. Not really. He left quietly after that last sentence, his steps slower than when he came in. And that silence, it told me everything. He was thinking. Not reacting, not defending Melissa. Thinking. That was the first crack. I didn't push him after that. No calls, no messages, because pressure makes people choose sides. And I didn't want him choosing sides. I wanted him choosing truth. Instead, I focused on what mattered. Building. The next week moved quickly, but not chaotically. Every step had purpose. Every decision had weight. I ordered 2 upright pianos, nothing extravagant, but well-maintained, warm, in tone, reliable. Instruments that would support learning, not impress strangers. I arranged for simple chairs, music stands, and shelving. No luxury, just function. Because this space wasn't about appearance, it was about experience. By the 3rd day, the room began to feel alive. Not full, but ready. I stood in the doorway one afternoon looking at the setup, and for a moment I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Pride, not loud pride, quiet, earned. This is enough, I whispered, and it was. That evening, I sent out my first message. Not an ad, not a campaign, a letter. Personal, direct, honest. Hello, this is Judith Perry. I'm opening a small music studio again. I told them what I believed, what I offered, what I didn't. No promises of greatness, no claims of elite status. Just consistency, care, real teaching. By the next morning, my phone had 3 messages. By the end of the day, 7. By the end of the week, no claims of elite status. Just consistency, care, real teaching. By the next morning, my phone had 3 messages. By the end of the day, 7. By the end of the week, 12 confirmed students. Not hundreds, not even dozens, but enough, more than enough. And something else started happening. People talked, quietly, naturally, organically. I heard you're teaching again. Is it true you opened a studio? My neighbor said her daughter is signing up. That's something Melissa didn't understand. You don't build reputation by announcing it. You build it by earning it. Meanwhile, Crescendo Academy launched. Loudly. Flashy posts, professional photos, grand opening banners, introductory discounts, free trial classes. They made noise. A lot of it. And at first glance, it worked. I saw it online. Comments, likes, shares. People were curious, interested, drawn in by the presentation. But curiosity is not commitment. And I knew that because I had seen it before. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't compare. I didn't compete. I simply continued. Teaching began the following Monday. My first student walked in at 3 p.m. sharp. A little girl named Sophie, 8 years old, nervous, clutching her mother's hand. Hi, I said gently, kneeling slightly to meet her eyes. I'm Judith. She nodded, barely speaking. That's okay, I smiled. We'll go slowly. Her mother looked relieved. That look, I remembered it. Trust. That's what people are really paying for. Not lessons, not music. Trust. The first session was simple. Posture, hand placement, listening, no pressure, no performance, just introduction. At the end of the lesson, Sophie smiled. Just a little, but enough. That's how it starts, I told her mother quietly. And it was. By the end of the week, I had taught 12 students, different ages, different levels, but the same pattern. Calm, focus, connection. And every time someone left, they said the same thing. It feels different here. Yes, it does, because it's real. On Friday evening, as I was closing up, my phone rang. Daniel, I let it ring once, twice, then I answered. Hello, Mom. His voice was quieter than usual. Yes. There was a pause. Can we talk? Of course. Another pause. Not here, he said. Somewhere else. That caught my attention. All right, I replied. Where? Coffee shop on Maplewood. Tomorrow morning. I'll be there. He hung up quickly. No explanation. No hesitation. I stood there for a moment holding the phone. Something had changed. I could feel it. The next morning, I arrived early. I sat by the window watching people pass by my coffee untouched. At exactly 9 o'clock, Daniel walked in. But he didn't look the same. His shoulders were tense, his eyes tired. He sat across from me without ordering anything. That bad? I asked quietly. He let out a breath. You were right. I didn't respond immediately. I let him say it again if he needed to, but he didn't. What happened? I asked. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. We only have 8 active students, he said. I nodded slowly. And we need at least 25 just to cover rent. There it was. The number, the pressure, and Melissa. I asked. His jaw tightened. She says it's normal. That growth takes time. And you, I think we're drowning. Silence. Heavy, honest. I tried to tell her we need to slow down. He continued. Cut costs, adjust pricing. And she won't listen. Of course she wouldn't, because to Melissa, slowing down feels like failure. Daniel, I said gently, what do you want? He looked at me, really looked. For the first time in a long time, not as my son, as a man trying to make sense of his choices. I don't know, he admitted. That was the truth. And the truth is where everything begins to shift. I leaned back slightly. You don't have to know everything right now, I said. You just have to be honest about what's not working. He nodded slowly. I came here because he hesitated, then continued. I saw your place. That surprised me. When I asked, yesterday, from outside. And he swallowed. It was full, not loud, not dramatic, just full. And ours, I asked quietly. He didn't answer. He didn't need to, because I already knew. I didn't answer him right away, not because I didn't have something to say, but because timing matters. Daniel sat there staring at the table, his hands wrapped around a coffee he hadn't touched. 8 students, 25 needed. I could see the numbers running through his head again and again like a loop he couldn't escape. You don't have to say anything, he muttered. I know, I replied softly. Silence settled between us, but this silence wasn't heavy. It was necessary. "Tell me about your week," I said finally. He looked up surprised. "What, your week?" "Not the numbers, not Melissa, just you." He hesitated, then leaned back, exhaling slowly. "It's chaos," he admitted. "Every day feels like we're chasing something we can't catch." I nodded. "And teaching." Another pause. "I barely teach," he said. "I'm handling, scheduling calls, payments, fixing things." "Fixing what?" "Everything." That word hung in the air. Everything. "That's not a school," I said quietly. He gave a bitter smile. "I'm starting to see that." I let that sit. "Because realization needs space to grow." "I thought it would feel exciting," he continued. "Opening something, building something with Melissa. And now, it feels like I'm holding something together that keeps falling apart." His voice cracked slightly at the end. Not loud, but enough. "Daniel," I said gently, "what do your students feel when they walk in?" He frowned. "I don't know. That's the problem?" He looked at me confused. "You're so focused on keeping things running, you've forgotten keeping things running. You've forgotten to notice what matters." "And what's that?" "The experience." He didn't respond. Because deep down, he knew. "You saw my studio?" I continued. "What did you notice?" He hesitated. "People were calm," he said slowly. "Yes, to notice what matters, and what's that the experience." He didn't respond, because deep down he knew. "You saw my studio," I continued. "What did you notice?" He hesitated. "People were calm," he said slowly. "Yes, parents weren't rushing, kids weren't stressed." I nodded. "And—" He swallowed. "They looked comfortable." "That's what they're paying for," I said. "Not the piano, not the lessons. That feeling." He leaned forward, rubbing his temples. "We tried to create something big," he said. "Something impressive, and you forgot to make it meaningful." "That's what they're paying for," I said. "Not the piano, not the lessons. That feeling." He leaned forward, rubbing his temples. "We tried to create something big," he said. "Something impressive, and you forgot to make it meaningful." Silence again. But this time, it shifted something. "I don't think Melissa will ever agree with that," he admitted. "I know, and if I say something she'll think I'm turning against her." "That's her fear," I said. "Not your truth." He looked at me sharply. "You really think this is about fear?" "Yes." Of what I held his gaze. Losing control. He sat back slowly, as if that answer explained more than he wanted it to. "She's been doubling down lately," he said after a moment. "More ads, more spending, discounts, promotions, and results." He shook his head. "Not enough. Because it never is. Not when the foundation is wrong." "Daniel," I said carefully, "how much have you invested?" He froze. That question. That one mattered. "Everything," he said quietly. "Be specific." He hesitated, then looked down. "My savings, the loan, credit cards." I nodded slowly. "And the piano?" He closed his eyes for a brief second. Yes, there it was, the full weight. Not just a bad decision, a chain of them. "And Melissa?" I asked. "She put in some money," he said quickly. "But not as much?" "Of course not." "And whose name is on the lease?" He didn't answer. I already knew. Yours, I said. He nodded. And the debt mine, too. Silence. Cold. Clear. Unavoidable. That was the moment. The real one. Not the piano. Not the studio. This. You didn't build a partnership, I said softly. You built a responsibility. He didn't argue, because he couldn't. I thought. He started, then stopped. What I thought if I supported her vision, everything would work out. And now I feel like I'm carrying it alone. There it was again. Truth. Raw. Unfiltered. I leaned forward slightly. Daniel, I said, my voice calm but firm. You have two choices. He looked at me. Not defensive, not resistant, just listening. You can keep holding something that's breaking you. I paused. Or you can step back and rebuild something that actually works. And what does that look like? He asked. I held his gaze. It starts with honesty. He frowned. With Melissa. With yourself. That hit harder than anything else. Because honesty with others is difficult, but honesty with yourself is unavoidable. I don't want to fail, he admitted. You already are, I said gently. He flinched. But I didn't sow feed in it. Because sugarcoating failure. Because honesty with others is difficult. But honesty with yourself is unavoidable. I don't want to fail, he admitted. You already are, I said gently. He flinched, but I didn't soften it, because sugarcoating failure doesn't fix it. What matters, I continued, is what you do next. He sat there processing, slowly, carefully. I don't think I can just walk away, he said. I'm not asking you to. Then what? I took a breath. This isn't about abandoning her, I said. It's about correcting the direction. And if she refuses? I didn't answer immediately, because that question, that was the real fear. Finally, I said, then you decide what matters more, her or yourself. I didn't say it, but he heard it anyway. He stood up suddenly, pacing a few steps. I need time, he said. Take it. He stopped, turning back to me. Mom, why are you helping me? I smiled slightly. Because you're my son. That didn't stop you from everything else. No, I said calmly. But it didn't stop me from caring either. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. I'll figure it out. I know you will. He left to gear it out. I know you will. He left after that, not defeated, not resolved, but changing. And sometimes, that's the most important step. Later that afternoon, I returned to my studio. The door opened. Voices filled the space. Students laughing. Parents talking quietly. Music drifting softly in the background. Alive, steady, real. I stood there for a moment, just listening. Then I noticed something. A woman standing near the entrance, watching, observing, evaluating. I recognized her immediately. Melissa. Melissa didn't walk in right away. She stood at the doorway watching. Not like a guest, not like a parent, like someone measuring something she didn't understand. I didn't approach her immediately. I kept teaching. Because this space, this wasn't about her. It was about the students. But I felt her eyes. Sharp. Calculating. Waiting. After about 10 minutes, I finished a lesson and turned toward her. Our eyes met. She didn't smile. Neither did I. Judith, she said, stepping inside slowly. Melissa. Her gaze moved around the room. The pianos, the students, the parents sitting quietly, the calm. I didn't realize it was this busy, she said. Her tone was controlled, but underneath it, I heard something else. Disbelief. It's steady, I replied. That's different. She gave a small, tight smile. Yes, different. We stood there for a moment. Neither of us rushing, neither of us pretending. I came to talk, she said finally. I assumed you would. She glanced around again. You don't mind I looked toward the students. They're fine. I led her into the small office space in the back. Closed the door gently. Now it was just the two of us. No audience, no distractions, just truth. She didn't sit. She stayed standing. That told me everything. I'm going to be direct, she said. I expect nothing less. Her jaw tightened slightly. Daniel came home yesterday. Different. I nodded. He talked to you. Yes. And now he's questioning everything. I didn't respond, because that wasn't a question. That was an accusation. You're interfering, she said. There it was. Clear, sharp, wrong. I'm listening, I corrected. You're influencing him. I'm telling him the truth. Her eyes flashed. Your version of the truth. No, I said calmly. Reality. Silence. Heavy. She took a step closer. You think because your little studio is working, you understand everything. This isn't about understanding everything I said. It's about seeing what's not working. And what we're doing is working, she shot back. Is it? That one question hit harder than anything else. She didn't answer right away, because she couldn't. You don't know the full picture, she said instead. Then tell me. She hesitated. Just for a second, but I saw it. The crack. We're growing, she insisted. These things take time. How many students? Her eyes narrowed. That's not your concern. It is when it involves my son. Another silence. Longer this time. 8, she said finally. And expenses. Her lips pressed together. High. Yes. And sustainable. She didn't answer. Because again, she couldn't. That doesn't mean we're failing, she said quickly. It means you're struggling, I replied. Everyone struggles in the beginning, not like this. Her voice rose slightly. You don't get to define what success looks like for us. I'm not defining it, I said calmly. The numbers are. That's when it shifted, from defensive to personal. You've always been like this, she said. Like what? Judging, controlling, acting like you know better. I held her gaze. I don't need to act like it. That hit hard. She stepped back slightly, breathing sharper now. This is exactly what I warned Daniel about, she said. You inserting yourself into our lives. I didn't insert myself, I said. He came to me. Because you planted doubt. No, I said firmly. Because reality did. That word again. Reality. It's uncomfortable, unforgiving, impossible to ignore. She turned away for a moment, pacing, then turned back. You think you've won something here? She said. I'm not competing. Yes, you are. No. Yes, she insisted. You bought that place just to prove a point. I smiled slightly. No, I bought it because it made sense. Don't lie, I'm not. She stared at me, searching, trying to find weakness, but there wasn't any, because this wasn't emotion, this was clarity. "You're trying to take him away from me," she said quietly. And there it was, the truth. Not anger, not pride, fear. "I'm not taking anyone," I said gently. "He's my husband, and he's my son." Silence. Balanced. Equal. Real. "You don't understand what we're building," she said. "Then help me understand." She opened her mouth, then stopped, because she didn't have the answer. Not a real one. Not one that held up under pressure. "We're building something big," she said finally. "At what cost?" She hesitated again. "Too long." "That's what I thought," I said softly. Her eyes filled with frustration. "You're turning him against me. I'm asking him to think. That's the same thing." "No," I said. "It's the opposite." She shook her head. "You don't get it." "No," I said. "You don't." That landed, and this time she felt it, because something in her expression changed. Not anger, not arrogance, something deeper, uncertainty. "I worked hard for this," she said quietly. "I know. I sacrificed everything, and so did he. That was the breaking point." She looked at me, really looked, and for the first time, she didn't look confident. She looked tired. "What do you want?" she asked. Simple question. Honest. "I want him to be okay," I said. "And me." I paused, choosing my words carefully. "I want you to be honest." She laughed. Short, bitter. "That's easy for you to say." "No," I said. "It's the hardest thing you'll ever do." Silence filled the room again. But this time, it wasn't tense. It was heavy, like something important was about to shift. She looked down, then back up. "If I admit things aren't working," she said slowly, "what happens next?" "That depends on what you're willing to change. And if I'm not..." I held her gaze. "Then you already know the answer." She didn't ask what that meant, because she understood, completely. Melissa didn't leave right away. After our conversation, she stood there for a few seconds like she was deciding something. Then she walked out of the office without another word. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to, because whatever was going to happen next, it wouldn't happen in that room. It would happen out there, in real life. That evening, Daniel called me. His voice sounded different again. Not confused like before. Not defensive either. Tired. "Mom," he said. Melissa came home, quiet. I leaned back in my chair. "That's new." "Yeah," he exhaled. She didn't argue, didn't explain, just quiet. Silence like that, it means something is shifting. "What happened after that?" I asked. "We ate dinner without talking much," he said. Then she went into the office and stayed there for hours. "Working? I don't think so." I didn't respond, because I knew that kind of silence. It's not work. It's confrontation with yourself. "She finally came out around midnight," Daniel continued, "and she asked me something." "What?" He hesitated, then said, "She asked if I was happy." That question, it changes everything. "And what did you say?" I asked softly. Another pause. "I didn't answer right away," he admitted. Of course he didn't, because there's no easy answer to that. I told her I don't know anymore. Honest. Painfully honest. "And how did she react?" "She didn't get angry," he said quietly. "That's what scared me." I closed my eyes briefly, because I understood. Anger is loud. It's predictable. But silence. Silence is where decisions are made.
She just nodded, he said, like she already expected that answer.
That was the moment. Not the argument, not the piano, not even the failing business. This, acceptance. She asked me if I still believed in the school, he continued, and I told her I believe in teaching, but I don't believe in how we're doing it. I felt a quiet sense of relief. Not victory. Relief, because he was finally separating the idea from the execution. And then I asked. She said we needed to talk seriously. Tomorrow. There it was, the real conversation. The one that decides everything. Are you ready for that? I asked. I think I have to be. Yes, I said. You do. He went quiet for a moment, then asked Mom if things fall apart. What do I do? I didn't answer immediately. Because that question, it carries weight. You rebuild, I said finally, from nothing. From truth. He let out a slow breath. That sounds hard. It is, but it's better than living a lie. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was grounding. Thank you, he said. You're welcome. We hung up, and I sat there for a while, thinking, not about Melissa, not about the studio, but about Daniel, because this was the moment where he either becomes stronger or breaks completely. The next day, I didn't hear from him until late afternoon. When my phone finally rang, I answered immediately. Well, I said. There was a long pause on the other end, long enough to make my chest tighten. It's over, he said. Simple. Flat. Final. I closed my eyes. Tell me. When my phone finally rang, I answered immediately. Well, I said. There was a long pause on the other end, long enough to make my chest tighten. It's over, he said. Simple. Flat. Final. I closed my eyes. Tell me. He took a breath. We talked for hours, he said. Everything came out. Everything. His voice trembled slightly. She admitted she knew the numbers weren't working. I wasn't surprised. She just didn't want to say it out loud, he continued. Because if she did, it meant she failed. There it was again. Fear. Always fear. She said she kept pushing harder because she thought success was just one step away. That's a dangerous belief, I said quietly. Yeah, he replied. I see that now. What about you? I admitted I felt trapped, he said, like I was holding everything together alone. And her response? He hesitated, then said, She cried. That caught me off guard. Not because she cried, but because she let herself. She said she didn't realize how much pressure I was under. He added, She thought I was just supporting her. And you were. I said, until it became too much. Yeah. Silence. Then he continued. She asked me if I wanted to keep going. And I said, not like this. A line drawn, clear, firm, necessary. She asked if I still believed in us, he said. That question, that one hurts. And what did you say? He exhaled slowly. I told her I don't know. Honest again. Painful. But real. She nodded. He said. Then she said, maybe we've been building something neither of us actually wanted. I leaned back, absorbing that. Because that's the truth most people never reach. What happened next? I asked. She said we should close the school. I didn't speak. I let him continue, and she said we should separate for a while. There it was, the breaking point. Are you okay? I asked gently. I don't know, he admitted. I feel empty. That's normal. After everything collapses, there's always emptiness. Where are you now? I asked. At home, he said. She packed a bag and left this morning. Silence filled the space between us. She said she needed to figure out who she is without all of this, he added. I nodded slowly, even though he couldn't see it. And you? I need to figure out who I am too. Yes, that's where it begins.
Not rebuilding the business, not fixing the relationship, rebuilding yourself. Come by the studio tomorrow, I said. For what to teach? He paused. I haven't taught in months, he said. Then it's time. Another silence. Then not rebuilding the business, not fixing the relationship, rebuilding yourself. Come by the studio tomorrow, I said. For what to teach? He paused. I haven't taught in months, he said. Then it's time. Another silence. Then, okay, that one word. It meant more than anything else, because it meant he was ready. Not to go back, but to start over. The next morning, Daniel arrived early, earlier than any student, earlier than me even. When I pulled into the parking lot, I saw him sitting on the front steps, elbows on his knees, hands clasped, head slightly down, waiting. That alone told me everything. He wasn't here out of obligation. He was here because he didn't know where else to go. I walked up slowly. You're early, I said. He looked up. His eyes were tired, but clearer than I'd seen in a long time. I didn't sleep much, he admitted. I figured. I unlocked the door and stepped inside.
He followed quietly. The studio was still, peaceful, untouched by the chaos of the past few days. And for the first time, he noticed it. It feels different here, he said, softly. It is different. He walked around slowly, running his hand lightly across one of the pianos, taking it in. Everything feels calm, he added. Because it's built on something stable. He nodded, like that made sense now, not just in theory, but in reality. What do you want me to do? He asked. I looked at him. Sit. He frowned slightly. That's it. That's it. He hesitated, but then sat down at one of the pianos, awkwardly, like it had been a long time. Play something, I said. I'm rusty. I know. He let out a quiet breath, then placed his hands on the keys. At first, nothing happened, just silence and tension. Then slowly, he pressed a note, then another, simple, careful, uncertain, but real. I didn't interrupt. I didn't guide. I let him find it, because that's what he needed. Not instruction, not pressure, space. After a minute, the notes started to connect. Not perfectly, but naturally, like something he had buried, was coming back. His shoulders relaxed, his breathing slowed, and for the first time since this all began, he looked at peace. When he stopped, he didn't look at me right away. He just sat there, hands resting on the keys. I forgot what this felt like, he said quietly. I leaned against the wall. That's what happens when something you love becomes something you're forced to carry. He nodded slowly. I think I lost it somewhere along the way. No, I said.
You just buried it. He looked at me. Is there a difference? Yes, I said, because buried things can be found again. Silence. But this time, it was a good silence. Do you think I can come back to this? He asked. I didn't answer immediately, not because I didn't know, but because I wanted him to think. What do you think? I asked instead. He looked down at his hands, flexed his fingers slightly. I think I want to. That's slightly. I think I want to. That's where it starts. He nodded, then asked something I didn't expect. What about Melissa? There it was, the question that still held weight. She's figuring things out? I said. And me? You're doing the same, where it starts? He nodded, then asked something I didn't expect. What about Melissa? There it was, the question that still held weight. She's figuring things out? I said. And me, you're doing the same. That doesn't answer the question. No, I said, it doesn't. He sighed. I don't know if we're going to make it, honest again. And this time without fear. That's okay, I said. He looked at me surprised. Really? Yes. He frowned slightly. Why? 'Cause staying in something that's broken isn't strength, I said. It's avoidance. He sat with that, letting it settle. I thought marriage meant pushing through no matter what he said. It means working through things that can be fixed, I corrected. Not sacrificing yourself for things that can't. He nodded slowly. I think we both changed, he said. People do, but we didn't change together. That was the truth. Simple, clear, painful. What happens now? He asked. Now you focus on rebuilding your life, I said. Not your past. He let out a slow breath. That sounds scary. It is. But it's also freeing. He sat there for a moment, then stood up. Can I help today? He asked. I smiled slightly. Yes. And just like that, he stepped into something new. Not as a son trying to fix everything, not as a husband trying to hold something together, but as himself. The morning passed quietly. He watched lessons, helped adjust benches, talked to parents. And slowly, he found his place, not forced, not pressured, earned. Around noon, one of the younger students struggled with a simple piece. Frustrated, on the verge of tears, I saw Daniel hesitate, then step forward. Hey, he said gently, kneeling beside her. Can I show you something? She nodded, sniffling. He sat next to her, played the piece slowly, breaking it down. Not just technically, but emotionally. Don't rush it, he told her softly. Let it breathe. I watched from across the room. Not interfering, just observing. Because this was who he really was. Not a businessman, not someone chasing numbers. A teacher. When the girl played it again, it wasn't perfect, but it was better. And more importantly, she smiled. See, he said, you've got it. She nodded proud. And in that moment, so was he. He stood up and looked at me, not saying anything, but I saw it. The realization, the clarity, the truth. Later that afternoon, as we closed up, he leaned against the doorframe. I think I understand now, he said. What? Why you did all this?
I raised an eyebrow. You didn't buy this place to prove anything he said?
No, you did it because you believed in something real. Yes.
He nodded slowly, and I think I forgot how to recognize that. I stepped closer. You didn't forget, I said. You got distracted. He let out a small, tired laugh.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
We stood there for a moment. Quiet, peaceful, different. I'm going to move out for a while, he said suddenly.
Okay, I need space to think. That's a good idea. And I'm going to keep coming here, he added. You're always welcome.
He smiled slightly. Thanks, Mom. And just like that, something shifted. Not everything, but enough. Enough to start over. A week passed. Not dramatic, not explosive, just steady. And sometimes that's more powerful than anything else. Daniel showed up every day. Early, quiet, focused. He didn't ask for anything. Didn't try to prove anything. He just worked. And little by little, I saw him come back to life. Not all at once. Not in some grand moment, but in small, honest pieces. The way he corrected a student gently. The way he stayed late to practice. The way he started smiling again without forcing it. That's how healing actually looks. Slow, uneven, real. One afternoon, as we were closing up, he lingered by the front desk, like he had something to say.
You've been watching me, he said. I didn't deny it. That's what mothers do.
He gave a small smile.
Am I doing okay?
I looked at him carefully. Not as a mother trying to comfort, but as someone who tells the truth.
You're doing the work, I said. That's not the same as doing okay.
No, I agreed. But it's how you get there. He nodded.
Accepting that. I talked to Melissa today, he added. That caught my attention.
How did that go? He leaned against the counter. Tense, but honest. What did she say?
She's looking for a job,
he said, outside of music. I raised an eyebrow slightly.
That's a big shift. Yeah, he said. She said she needs to figure out who she is without chasing something that isn't working.
I nodded slowly.
That isn't working. I nodded slowly. That's not easy. No, he agreed, but I think she finally sees it. And you, I see it too, he said quietly, just differently. How so? He hesitated, then said, I still love music. I just hate what we turned it into. That's not easy. No, he agreed. But I think she finally sees it. And you? I see it too, he said quietly. Just differently. How so? He hesitated, then said, I still love music. I just hate what we turned it into. That distinction, that's everything? What about the two of you? I asked.
He exhaled. We're still separated, emotionally or physically. Both, honest again. But we're talking, he added. Really talking, for the first time in a long time. That mattered. More than people realize. Do you want to fix things, I asked? He looked down, then back at me. I don't know if fixing is the right word. What is understanding? I nodded slowly. That's a better place to start. He gave a small, tired laugh. I wish I had known that earlier. Most people don't. We stood there for a moment, quiet. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. "I'm sorry." I looked at him. "For what?" "For the piano," he said. The word hung in the air, heavy, honest. "I should have stopped it," he continued. "I knew it mattered to you, and I let it happen anyway." I held his gaze. "You didn't just let it happen," I said. "You chose not to fight it." He nodded, pain flickering across his face. "I thought it was just an object, and now I understand it wasn't." I took a slow breath. Because this moment, this is where forgiveness either begins or doesn't. "It wasn't about the piano," I said. He frowned slightly. "Then what was it about?" "It was about respect." That landed hard. "I see that now," he said quietly. "Good." Silence settled between us. Not uncomfortable, but important. "I can't undo what I did," he added. "No," I said. "You can't. But I want to make it right." I studied him for a moment. "Then start by not repeating it." He nodded. "I won't." And I believed him, because for the first time, he wasn't speaking from guilt. He was speaking from understanding. That's the difference. Later that evening after he left, I stayed behind alone. The studio was quiet, empty, peaceful. I walked over to the piano, the one I had replaced. Not the same. It never would be. But still mine. I sat down, placed my hands on the keys, and played. Not for an audience. Not for a student. Just for me. The notes filled the room slowly, softly. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel anger, or loss, or even victory. I felt calm, because this was never about winning. It was about restoring something that had been broken. Not just the piano, not just the relationship, but the boundaries, the truth, the balance. The next day, something unexpected happened. Melissa showed up at the studio. I saw her through the window before she walked in. She hesitated at the door, then stepped inside, carefully, like she wasn't sure she belonged there. Daniel wasn't there yet. It was just me and her. "I wasn't sure if I should come," she said. "You're here," I replied. She nodded, took a few steps in, looking around, taking everything in. "It's different than I imagined," she admitted. "How so?" "Calmer," she said. "Less forced." I didn't respond, because she was seeing it for herself, and that mattered more than anything I could say. "I wanted to talk to you," she added. "I figured." She took a breath. "I owe you an apology." I didn't interrupt. "I pushed things too far," she said. "I ignored warning signs. I made decisions without thinking about how they affected you." Her voice wavered slightly. "But more than that, I disrespected you." There it was, the word again. Respect. "I thought I knew what success looked like," she continued, "and I forced everyone else to follow that vision." I studied her carefully. "Because apologies, they're easy to say, harder to mean." And now I asked. Now I realize I was wrong. Simple. Direct. No excuses. That mattered. "I don't expect forgiveness," she added quickly. "I just wanted to say it." I nodded slowly. "I hear you," she swallowed, eyes slightly glassy. "I'm trying to fix things," she said, "starting with myself." "That's the only place you can start," I replied. She nodded, then looked around one more time. I think Daniel belongs here, she said quietly. I didn't respond, because that wasn't my decision. That was his. But hearing her say it, it meant something. He's different when he's here, she added. Lighter. Yes, I said. He is. She gave a small, sad smile. I haven't seen him like that in a long time. Silence. Then she turned toward the door. I won't stay, she said. Okay. She paused, hand on the handle, then looked back at me. Thank you, she said. For what? For showing him what he almost lost. She left, and I stood there, still. Because something had shifted again. Not dramatically, not completely, but enough. Enough to know this story wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity. And clarity changes everything. A few days later, everything changed again. But this time, it wasn't quiet. It wasn't subtle. It was the kind of moment that forces everything out into the open. Daniel didn't show up that morning. That alone was unusual. He hadn't missed a single day since he started coming back. Not even once. So I knew something was wrong. I tried not to jump to conclusions, tried to focus on the students, on the rhythm of the day. But the feeling stayed with me. Heavy, unsettling. Around noon, my phone rang. It was Daniel. I answered immediately. Are you okay? There was a pause on the other end. Then his voice came through. Tight, controlled. But underneath it, something was breaking. I need you to come, he said. Where? Our apartment. My stomach dropped. I'm on my way. I didn't ask anything else. I locked up early and drove there faster than I probably should have. When I arrived, the front door was open. That was the first sign. The second was the silence. I stepped inside slowly. Daniel? No answer. But I could hear movement. Voice. Tense. Sharp. Coming from the living room. I walked in and stopped. Melissa was there, standing near the window, arms crossed, defensive. Daniel stood across from her, jaw tight, eyes burning. And between them, boxes, packed, stacked, ready. I didn't need an explanation. This wasn't a conversation. This was the end of something. I didn't expect you to involve your mother, Melissa said coldly. I didn't, Daniel shot back. She came because I asked for help. I stepped further into the room. What's going on? Neither of them answered right away. Then Daniel spoke. I'm moving out. Simple, final. Melissa let out a bitter laugh. So that's it. After everything, he repeated. Her eyes flashed. You're giving up. No, he said firmly. I am choosing something different. And what is that? She demanded. This, he gestured around the room. This isn't working. It hasn't been for a long time. She shook her head. You just don't want to fight for it anymore. I've been fighting, he said. Just not for the right thing. That landed harder than anything else. I could see it in her face. The crack, the hurt, the realization. You think I'm the wrong thing, she asked quieter now. He hesitated, and that hesitation said everything. I think what we built together isn't healthy, he said carefully. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. You're choosing her over me, she said, looking straight at me. I didn't react, didn't step in, because this wasn't about me. It never was. No, Daniel said. I'm choosing myself.
Silence. Heavy. Final. You wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for her. Melissa continued, voice rising again. She poisoned everything. That was the first time she crossed the line. I felt it, but I didn't respond. Because this wasn't about defending myself. It was about letting the truth speak for itself. Daniel stepped forward. Stop, he said sharply. She didn't poison anything. She showed me what I refused to see. And what's that? Melissa snapped. That I lost myself, he said. Trying to build something that wasn't real. Her face crumpled for a second, then hardened again. So now you're just walking away? Yes. No hesitation this time. No doubt. Just truth. What about everything we planned? She asked. What about the school? She added, voice cracking slightly. There is no school, he said quietly. That hit her harder than anything else. Because that dream, that was hers. The one she chased. The one she built everything around. You took that from me, she whispered. No, Daniel said gently. It was never there to begin with. She shook her head. No, that's not true. But even as she said it, she didn't believe it anymore. Because reality had already proven otherwise. I'm not saying you can't build something, he continued, but not like that. Not by forcing it. She laughed weakly. So now you're the expert. No, he said. I'm just finally being honest. The room fell silent again, and this time there was nothing left to argue. No more illusions, no more pretending. Just truth. Raw, uncomfortable, unavoidable. Melissa looked at me. Not angry this time. Just tired. Did you plan all of this? She asked. I met her gaze. No. Then why does it feel like you won that question? It revealed everything. I didn't win anything, I said calmly. Then what is this? She gestured around the room. This is the result of choices, I replied. She stared at me, searching for something. Maybe blame, maybe justification. But there was none. Because this wasn't about sides. It was about consequences. She looked back at Daniel. So that's it? She asked one last time. Yes, and just like that, it was over. Not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. She turned away, walked toward the bedroom, closed the door behind her. Daniel stood there, still, like the weight of everything had finally hit him. You okay? I asked softly. He exhaled slowly. No, honest, but I will be better. He looked around the apartment, at the boxes, at the life he was leaving behind. I thought this was what I wanted, he said. It's okay to be wrong. I wasn't just wrong, he said. I ignored everything telling me I was. I nodded. That's how people learn. He let out a quiet breath. I just wish it didn't take this much. It usually does. We started packing the last few things in silence. Not awkward, not heavy, just real. When we finished, he picked up the final box, looked around one last time, then turned toward the door. I'm ready, he said, and for the first time, he actually was. The apartment felt smaller as we carried the last box out, like the walls themselves were shrinking around everything that had just happened. Daniel didn't look back. Not once. That told me more than anything he had said. When someone truly lets go, they stop checking what they're leaving behind. We loaded the boxes into my car in silence. Not because there was nothing to say, but because everything important had already been said. Halfway through, he suddenly paused, holding a small, worn photo frame. I recognized it. Their wedding day. Melissa was laughing in it, head thrown back, eyes bright. Daniel looked. Halfway through, he suddenly paused, holding a small, worn photo frame. I recognized it. Their wedding day. Melissa was laughing in it, head thrown back, eyes bright. Daniel looked younger, lighter, like someone who still believed life would unfold exactly the way he planned. "You keeping that?" I asked gently. He stared at it for a long moment, then shook his head. "I don't think I should." "Why?" "Because I'll confuse memories with reality," he said. That answer, it was more mature than anything I'd heard from him before. "Memories aren't lies," I said. "No," he agreed. "But they're incomplete." I nodded. "That's true." He placed the frame carefully back inside the box, not throwing it away, not clinging to it, just putting it where it belonged, in the past. We finished loading everything and drove in silence for a while. The road stretched ahead of us. Open, uncertain, but honest. "Where are you going to stay?" I asked.
"With you," he said. It wasn't a question, and I didn't hesitate. "Of course." He exhaled slowly, like that answer gave him something solid to stand on. "I don't want to be a burden," he added. "You won't be," I said. "I mean it," he pressed. "I need to figure things out on my own, too." "And you will," I replied. "But you don't have to do that alone." He nodded. That was enough. When we got home, I showed him the guest room. Simple, clean, quiet. "This works," he said.
"It's not permanent," I reminded him.
"I know."
"But it's safe."
That word, safe.
It mattered more than comfort, more than space, more than anything else. He set his box down and sat on the edge of the bed, looking around like he was trying to understand how his life had narrowed down to this one small room. "You okay?" I asked. He rubbed his face. "I don't feel anything yet." "That's normal. It should hurt more, shouldn't it?" "It will," I said, "just not all at once." He gave a faint, tired smile. "Something to look forward to." I didn't laugh, because we both knew that wasn't a joke. The next few days were quiet, different from before. Not tense, not heavy, just transitional. Daniel kept coming to the studio, working, teaching, healing in his own way. At home, he stayed mostly to himself, reading, thinking, sometimes just sitting in silence, processing everything. I didn't push, didn't pry, because healing doesn't respond well to pressure. It needs space, time, permission. One evening about a week after he moved in, we sat at the kitchen table. No distractions, no noise, just the two of us. I keep replaying everything he said suddenly. "That's normal." I see all the moments where I should have spoken up. I nodded, and I didn't. "Why?" He hesitated, then answered honestly. "Because it was easier not to." That answer. It takes courage to admit that.
"Comfort can be dangerous," I said.
"Yeah," he agreed. "It cost me a lot. It taught you something too." He looked at me. "What?" "That silence is a choice." He leaned back in his chair, thinking about that. "I always thought I was avoiding conflict," he said. "You were, but I was also creating something worse." "Yes, That realization settled deep. I don't want to be that person again, he said. Then don't be. He let out a small breath. Easier said than done. Most important things are. He nodded slowly, then asked something I wasn't expecting. Do you think she'll be okay? Melissa? Even now? He cared. That told me something important. Yes, I said. Eventually. He stared down at his hands. I never wanted to hurt her. I know. But I did. Yes. Silence. But staying would have hurt both of you more, I added. He looked up, eyes tired, but clearer than before. I think I knew that, he said. You did. I just didn't want to accept it. Most people don't. He nodded, accepting that truth. I hope she finds something real, he said quietly. So do I. And I meant it, because despite everything, this wasn't about destroying someone. It was about stopping a cycle that was hurting everyone involved. A few days later, something unexpected happened again. But this time, it felt different, lighter, hopeful. Daniel came into the studio earlier than usual, holding something in his hand. What's that? I asked. He placed it gently on the desk. A flyer. Printed. Simple. Clean. I picked it up. Read it. Community music night, I said. He nodded. Open to anyone, he explained. No auditions, no pressure. Just people who want to play. I looked at him. Really looked. This wasn't about ambition or proving anything. This was about connection. Why, I asked. Because that's what I forgot, he said. Music isn't about building something big. It's about sharing something real. That was the lesson. The one he had been fighting against this entire time. And now he finally understood it. I think it's a good idea, I said. He smiled. Not forced, not uncertain, just genuine. Me too. We started planning it together. Simple things. Chairs, lights, invitations. Nothing complicated. Nothing forced. And somehow, it felt more meaningful than anything we had done before. Because this time, there was no illusion. No pressure. Just truth. And that changes everything. The night of the event arrived faster than I expected. Community music night. Simple words, but they carried something bigger than either of us had planned. By late afternoon, the studio was already buzzing. People started showing up early. Not performers, not professionals, just people. Neighbors, retirees. A young girl clutching a violin case like it was something fragile and important. A middle-aged man holding a guitar like he hadn't played it in years. And something in the air. It felt different. Real. No pressure, no expectations, just curiosity. Daniel stood near the entrance greeting people. At first, I watched from a distance, because I wanted to see it. Who he was becoming, without interference, without influence, just him. And what I saw made something in my chest loosen. He smiled easily, listened fully, spoke without hesitation, not trying to impress, not trying to control, just connecting. Welcome, I heard him say to an older woman. You don't have to play if you don't want to. She laughed softly. I haven't touched a piano in 30 years. That's okay, he said. You can just sit, or listen, or change your mind later. No pressure, no expectations. That was the difference. That was everything. I walked over to him. You built something, I said quietly. He shook his head. No, he said. We opened something.
I smiled. That answer. That was the final shift, the one that mattered. As the room filled, the energy grew. Not loud, not chaotic, but warm, like something alive. We set up a small corner with a simple piano. Not the old one. But it didn't matter, because it wasn't about the instrument anymore. It was about what it represented. People started playing, one at a time. No order, no structure. A young boy played something clumsy but sincere. A woman sang softly, her voice shaking at first, then steadying. Applause came naturally, not polite, but genuine, encouraging, real. And then, something I didn't expect. The older woman from earlier slowly walked toward the piano. She hesitated, looked at Daniel. "Are you sure?" she asked. He nodded. "Only if you want to." She sat down, hands trembling slightly. Then she played, soft at first, careful, like she was afraid the notes might break. But they didn't. They filled the room, gentle, honest, beautiful. And as she played, something changed in her face. Her shoulders relaxed, her breathing steadied. She wasn't remembering anymore. She was living it again. When she finished, the room was quiet for a moment, then applause. Louder this time, stronger. She laughed, a small, surprised laugh. "I forgot how much I missed that," she said. Daniel smiled. "That's why we're here." I looked at him, and in that moment, I saw it clearly. He wasn't trying to build something impressive anymore. He was creating space. For people. For truth. For connection. Later that evening, as the crowd thinned, I stepped outside for some air. The sky was dark, quiet, peaceful. Daniel joined me a few minutes later. We stood there side by side. No rush, no tension, just stillness. "That felt right," he said. "Yes," I agreed. He looked up at the sky. "I spent so much time chasing something big," he said. "Something that would prove I mattered." "You don't need to prove that. I know that now." I nodded. And I think I understand you better now." I glanced at him. "What do you mean? You never cared about building something huge," he said. "You cared about building something real." I smiled slightly. "It took you a while." He laughed softly. "Yeah, it did." We stood there for a moment longer. Then he said something that surprised me. "I want to stay here," he said. "At the studio?" "Yes." "Teaching?" "Yes." I looked at him. You're sure?" He nodded. "For the first time, I'm not chasing anything. I'm choosing something. That difference. It changes everything." "I'm proud of you," I said. He exhaled slowly. "I'm starting to be proud of myself, too. That might have been the biggest shift of all." We went back inside, finished cleaning up, stacked chairs, turned off lights. The space looked different now. Not empty, but full. Full of what had happened, full of what it meant. As we were about to leave, I noticed something on the piano. A small envelope. No name, just left there. I picked it up, opened it. Inside was a simple note. "Thank you for reminding me who I used to be." No signature. I showed it to Daniel. He read it quietly, then smiled. "That's enough," he said. Yes, I agreed. It was. Because in the end, this was never about revenge. It was never about winning. It was about something deeper, something quieter, something lasting. We locked up the studio and stepped outside. The night air felt lighter, like something had finally settled. "I think this is just the beginning," Daniel said. "It is." And for the first time in a long time, I believed that without hesitation. Not because things were perfect, but because they were real. And that's what lasts. Sometimes life doesn't fall apart because of one big mistake. It unravels slowly, through silence, through compromise, through choosing comfort over truth. And by the time we realize it, we've built something that doesn't feel like us anymore. What I learned through all of this is simple, but not easy. You can't build something meaningful on pressure, expectation, or illusion. Not in business, not in relationships, not in life. Real things, they grow from honesty, from presence, from the courage to admit when something isn't working, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. I didn't lose a piano. I didn't lose my son. I didn't even lose the past. I just stopped trying to hold on to something that was already gone. And in doing that, I made space for something real to come back. If this story touched you, I'd really love to hear from you. Have you ever had to let go of something you thought you needed, only to realize it was holding you back? Leave a comment and share your experience. And if you're watching from somewhere in the world tonight, tell me where you are and what time it is for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this, because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that remind us who we really are.